Hi amazing Media Action colleagues, it's Simon here, your CEO, calling in from London. I just wanted to record a very little video to introduce you to our draft strategic framework. So as you know, we've been working hard on one of our organisational priorities, a new bold strategy due for approval by the trustees in April this year. And so far we've come up with a strategic framework, the overall architecture for the strategy, and we are consulting you on this today. So hopefully you're seeing this video at the start of your consultation in each of your different country offices. I just wanted to say first of all that I think our USP, or our unique selling point, our DNA if you like, we don't think is going to change. So we've defined that as the amazing creative journalists, international development, the mix of folk and expertise, researchers as well, that we have in Media Action already. That's the first component. The second is our link to the BBC, and the third is our amazing ability to understand our local audiences. So those three things are the kind of ingredients that we think make up our unique selling points, and we don't think these are going to change moving forward. However, we do think there should be 5 strategic shifts in our new strategy, and I'm just going to run through each of those now. The first one, and arguably the most important, is that we're going to change our purpose. We all get up every day out of bed, we're driven to get out of bed every day to make an impact, to make the world a better place. And that really is what being, for me anyway, working in a charity is all about, making the world a better place. Our current purpose is really poverty alleviation based. It's about international development, helping the world's poorest people. What we're advocating for is a shift to work on the biggest media and information mega trends or challenges of our time: distrust, disinformation, and division, the 3 Ds. That doesn't mean we are leaving development behind. The vast majority of the people we reach, and I'll come on to this more in a minute, will be the world's poorest people. So we are still doing poverty. However, we're saying we're shifting to poverty and media, and where media will be the main focus. Why are we doing that? We're doing that because those mega trends, all of that polarization around the world that is driving division, the explosive growth in disinformation, and how that is leading to growing distrust around the world, they're all media information mega trends that didn't even exist in the top 10 5 years ago, are right up there now and are likely to continue to grow into the future. And we think as a media organisation, Media Action, and as an organisation tied to the BBC Media Action, we should be working primarily on tackling those mega trends. But as I say, it doesn't mean, don't worry, it doesn't mean we're leaving development, we're leaving poverty alleviation behind. We're just shifting from development, if you like, only to development and media. And that's best explained perhaps by our audiences. So our audiences have historically been the world's poorest people. We're going to try and shift to those most impacted by disinformation and distrust and division. So that's our first big audience. Within that, we want to focus on those who are underserved by public interest media. And that will by definition be those people who live in many of the world's poorest countries. And within that group, we want to go even narrower and focus on young people and grow our youth audience from the current 25% to potentially 40%, even higher. So that's our second shift, audiences. Changing from the world's poorest people to focusing on those most impacted by distrust, division and disinformation. And within that, those who are underserved by public interest media and therefore lack trustworthy information, sources of trustworthy information, and within that, young people. So that's the second shift. The third shift is around activities. This is perhaps a less significant but still very important shift. We want to make sure that all of our activities, everything we do, is media focused. We want to be laser-like on just doing media, and that's because that is our strength. So we will continue to do media content, media distribution, media research, and we'll try to do a lot more media policy and advocacy. So that's an additional element, if you like. But everything we do, we really want to be core media, core BBC. So for example, we will stop physically going into villages. That is not our expertise. We should be working as part of localization with local NGOs to actually go into villages and, for example, do things like listening clubs. Of course, we may lead a consortium of NGOs and organizations, and some of them will be going in and doing that, but we really want to focus on us delivering the media element. So that's critical. That's the third shift. So I say it's less significant than the first two, because much of what we do already is already media focused. But there are some things where we don't, and we want to stop doing those things. The fourth shift is what we're calling arena. So at the moment, 95% of what we do is deliver local programs on the ground in our 25 countries of operation. As we know, these are wonderful programs, they're high quality and they're evidence-based. However, if you only deliver local programs, you're only delivering on what I call one side of the impact coin. So the other side is you take the evidence, you take the ideas, you take the voices of our local audiences, and you take them to national, regional and global levels. And by doing that, you convince others to perhaps replicate what you're doing or learn from what you're doing, and ultimately therefore drive much more impact. So we want to evolve our arena from 95% local to 80% local, with the rest 20% being made up of much more sort of national, regional, global ecosystem, media ecosystem activities, and a lot more of that will be around sort of policy and activity in trying to change global decision makers' attitudes around the role media can play in making the world a better place. The fifth shift is a significant one, is a change in our BBC relationship. What we would like to do is move from the periphery of the BBC to absolutely the heart of the BBC, and to be much more embedded in the BBC. This is what the BBC wants us to do. It's also what I and the management team think we should do, because ultimately it will help us drive more impact. Just let me run through a couple of the elements on the BBC relationship. We want to absolutely keep delivering audiences for the BBC as part of the global audience measure, and we will prioritise, as you saw in the audiences section, some audiences that are increasingly important to the BBC, for example, young people. We'll also try and share around the world the BBC's world-leading ideas, experience and services, much more than we do now. So this might actually see us, for example, trying to fundraise for BBC Verified to be replicated in other public interest media broadcasters, or BBC Academy, the BBC's training arm, to actually deliver journalist training around the world, rather than just us doing it on our own. So I'm sure we will still do it, but we will be looking to share wider parts of the BBC. We'll be looking to share BBC ideas on, for let's say, the newsroom of the future, or on the role of AI in journalism. The BBC creates a lot of these thinking and ideas for itself, and it sort of sits in-house with the BBC. And what we can do is take it out to the wider world and help strengthen, for example, public interest media around the world. We're also going to try and be much more the BBC's fundraiser, raising money from philanthropists, multilaterals and bilaterals. So we've obviously done that for ourselves historically, and we've raised £651 million over the last 25 years, which is an incredible achievement. We'll continue to do that, but we want to kind of do that for parts of the BBC as well. We also want to ensure that BBC employees are proud of BBC Media Action, and that the BBC has BBC Media Action as its two own charities, along with Children in Need. There are very strong figures showing how proud BBC employees are of Children in Need. It would be great if we can get to a similar level to Children in Need, that they are aware of, proud of, and out championing us, and that the BBC having BBC Media Action is all part of the BBC overall employee offer and experience. So that's some of the elements of what is our fifth shift, which is moving from the periphery of the BBC to the heart of the BBC. Underlying these 5 shifts are 4 enablers, and I'm not going to talk much about them today, but they include a sustainable business model. We obviously have to have a sustainable business model, otherwise we won't exist. Tied to that is securing unrestricted, as you've heard me talk about on the improving financial health organisational priority. We do not have enough sustainable unrestricted, and you can't run a charity without sustainable unrestricted. So a real drive to grow our own sustainable unrestricted. A third enabler will be to embrace digital, so do what we're doing now, but amplify it several-fold to make sure that we are fit for purpose in a digital age, and to fit with the BBC increasingly going digital. And the fourth, but by no means least final element, is to make sure that BBC Media Action is a great place to work, to really build on that fourth organisational priority we've talked about, championing people, all of you, our number one asset, and our culture. So that, in a nutshell, is our proposed strategic framework. It's important to say that it's not complete, so it's the high-level architecture, but there are important elements of detail that are still missing. For example, our approach to localization, our partnership approach, our approach to environmental sustainability, and our KPIs, the key performance metrics we'll use to measure whether we've successfully implemented this strategy. They will come in about 4 or 6 weeks' time, so just bear that in mind. But hopefully this is enough for you to have a really meaningful discussion about the future of the organisation. You can see where it's going. And just to summarise for you again, a shift in purpose, a really important shift in purpose that leads us to be working foremost on the big media and information related megatrends defining the world today. We're not leaving poverty behind. We will still do that, but we're saying our primary purpose will be to play a part in the world tackling those issues. Secondly, this will lead to us shifting audience to focus on those most at risk of distrust and division, and ensuring that we focus on those audiences who are underserved by public interest media. Thirdly, that our activities will be a laser-like focus on media activities, media content, distribution, research, and a new area, policy and advocacy. Fourthly, that we'll shift from almost 100% local to local and global, trying to act much more as a global public good for media. And fifthly, a big shift in our BBC relationship from periphery to centre, to be embedded at the heart of the BBC, to be valued much more by the BBC, and to be out there in the world sharing the BBC's world-leading experience, ideas and products. I hope that's clear. I hope you have a wonderful consultation session, and I look forward to hearing from all of you and to changing this strategy in response to your views. Fundamentally, I hope you're starting to get excited about the future of BBC Media Action, that this is the right strategy for us, it's the right strategy given a changing world, a changing sector, a changing BBC. And as I say, I look forward to hearing from you, and I look forward to then taking account of all of your comments as we then come up with a later draft of the strategy in a few weeks' time. For now, take care and have a really, really fun but also productive consultation session. Thank you. Bye.